It's time for the Brouhaha Sports Show. Brouhaha Sports with award-winning sports writer Dale McKee and co-host Marshall Wood. Talking sports with the legends of the game and famous sports personalities. Brouhaha. Now to Marshall and Dale with tonight's guest.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brouhaha. Marshall Wood sitting here looking at Dale McKee. Whew! What a blessing.
Have you been to the eye doctor lately, son?
No. I haven't. And it's funny you should say that. I have not been because I got a message from my eye doctor not too long ago said we have not seen you in a while. And,
really?
So
I like the way you said it. I have not seen you.
That's right. I'm the one that needs to be seeing her down here. Yeah. All right. Well, Dale, basketball going on big time. Things lining up. We're talking about Final Fours and all kind of stuff like that. I'm looking at your sideline view. How about Florida Atlantic?
Well, we're going to talk about them in a second, but last year we had the blue bloods of all blue bloods in the finals. We had Villanova, Duke, North Carolina, and Kansas. How much better is that? And then this year we've got 4 rent-a-cars up there: Florida Atlantic and San Diego State and Miami and somebody else is up in there too. Yeah. I can't remember even the 4 that's up there, but.
You said Miami, didn't you?
Yeah, I said San Diego, Florida State, and Miami, and UConn. I think.
UConn's only veteran, so to speak.
Yeah, and the others haven't. I don't even think been to the finals. And UConn was like the 4th seed, and so that means they're in between 16th and 20th ranked. And the others were like 9th. Florida Atlantic was like 9th. San Diego State, Miami, I think, were 5th. So what I'm saying is that. Maybe it's good, but we've been talking about that NIL and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And Miami's probably used it better than anybody.
Yeah, but did the lady women's team make the Final Four too?
No, they were beaten by somebody last night. Maybe I see Iowa beat Louisville. LSU must have beat Miami.
Yeah. You talking about Miami knowing how to do it? They were doing it when you wasn't supposed to be doing it. They're legendary.
Well, yeah, but they just took off where they left off. Hey, okay, we can do it this above the table now.
Yeah. And
stuff like that. But I think it's going to be an interesting. I've kind of got my hopes on Florida Atlantic. It really doesn't matter. San Diego State would be good, but Florida Atlantic has got a few Mississippi connections, because they got a Martin kid from. North Pike High School that was an excellent athlete in high school. They have a player on the team that's played at Northwest Junior College from Pensacola, and then I've got another high school kid from Canton, Mississippi. And and they've got an former Ole Miss player as an assistant coach that was a very good player at Ole Miss. I think he was like the 6th man of the year one year when he played up there, Todd Abernathy. So, and of course, I reached out to Coach Ladner down at Southern because last year he had to play Florida Atlantic a couple times when they were all in Conference USA. And he said, I said, is this a surprise to you? And he said, no. He said, any basketball coach knew that those guys had experience. They had recruited well, and they ended up 35-3 so far. Yeah. So, it wasn't a surprise to him. And he said they tried really hard to get the Brandon Quindary from Canton, and they tried really hard to get the Martin kid from Mississippi. From North Pike. I'm kind of losing my train of thought here, and I apologize for that. But so it is what it is. But you can build your program pretty quick. These days.
Well, Southern's turned around. But I'm sitting here looking at Conference USA. Southern's Riverview Mirror Conference, and I mean FAU's in the Final Four. The Conference USA's got North Texas and UAB in the Final Four of the NIT. CUSA's had a pretty good basketball year.
Yeah, but in talking to Coach Ladner over the weekend, I talked to him really Saturday night, and he said that Florida Atlantic's leaving the Conference USA, and he said one of the reasons that Southern and several left this year is that they just felt like Conference USA never did promote their teams, whether it be football, basketball, or eight. And he said, you see by what we got two teams. They got two teams in the Final Four and one in the final. I mean, two teams in the NIT Final Four and one in there. Yeah. And so, but what's hot about Florida Atlantic is, you know, who beat them in one of those 3 losses?
Who?
Come on, guess.
Oh man.
The University of Southern Mississippi. I mean, the University of Mississippi. Excuse me, Mississippi. Ole Miss. Oh, okay. Ole Miss beat them back on November 11th. So you know that's kind of odd, you know, for me because Ole Miss struggled the whole year. So anyway,
you made a comment in your first remarks there about the Blue Bloods last year and this year, the New Bloods, and this is the first time since sitting began in 1979 that none of the 1, 2, or 3 seeds advanced to the NCAA men's tournament's final weekend. None of them.
Well, they were talking about Florida Atlantic. I didn't include it in my column this week because I'm limited to how many words I can type or put in an article. But they're the first number 9 seed since '79 to make it to the Final Four, and they're also the other previous 8 have not made it to the championship game. So
this may be for uncharted waters.
Uncharted. Well, it's been the whole postseason like that. What else you want to talk about?
Well, I'll tell you what. Looking at our time, we better talk about our guest tonight.
Well, you don't want to talk about college baseball in Mississippi?
No, we'll talk about that later. We got a guest to come on.
No, what I'm saying it's not a lot of talk about. Mississippi State and Ole Miss are 0-6 in the SEC. They hadn't done that since 1952.
Well, I was going to say that's I had that marked in yellow over here on your thing. See, I did, and I want to go, but I mean, my goodness, Ole Miss 0-6 in conference, 15-9. Mississippi State, is this baseball? 0-6, 14-9. Southern Mississippi 3-3 in conference, 14-9. I mean, we talk about the state of baseball, Mississippi. And I mean, Ole Miss. I mean, my goodness. I sure hope things turn around.
Hey, we went from the mecca of college baseball to I don't know where. What's the opposite of mecca?
I guess we went to sleep. Dumpster fire.
Somebody got to sleep at the wheel.
I don't know, but it's a game, man. You got to play it. You never know.
You got to be able to pitch. Now, Ole Miss has one excuse. They got 2 starters on the bench right now because of injuries, and they're supposed to get them back here shortly. But you've got to have pitching, and but you get demoralized very early when you fall behind 5-6-0 in the second inning, like State did this weekend against Vanderbilt. Ole Miss was a little competitive until the late innings against Florida.
When Vanderbilt, I don't know who they were. Did I see some scores somewhere that were just outrageous? And was it beating Ole Miss or Mississippi State?
Well, now they did
20 points maybe or something.
Well, yeah, I think one of them like 27-3 this week or something.
Oh my goodness! You see
bad.
that somewhere around. I saw a high school game somewhere the other day. It might have been a Lady War Eagle softball game. They beat somebody 24-2 or something like that. But we talking about NCAA. We talking about SEC.
Yeah.
Giving up 20+ runs in a baseball game. That's a lot.
That's tough.
Well, look, who you got for us tonight?
We got a former Atlanta Brave player. He's also was a scout for him for probably 40 years, if not longer. He worked for the Brave organization from I think he got drafted maybe around 71 from the Braves, and he was with them until about a year ago.
Okay.
And he was also an assistant general manager for them at one time.
Ah, okay.
And so he's hopefully give us a little knowledge about the Atlanta Braves.
What's his name?
Rodney Gilbreath. He's from Laurel, Mississippi.
Man, I tell you what, there's a lot of sports come out of Laurel.
They used to call him in high school the Golden Arm.
The Golden Arm.
That's when he was playing football.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what let's do. Let's take a break to hear from our sponsor, and then Dale and I'll be back with tonight's guest right after this commercial break.
Phillips Building Supply in Laurel, your hometown building supply store since 1954. We are locally owned and pride ourselves on helping our customers find exactly what they need. From foundations to roofs to doors and windows, Phillips has it. For tools, hardware, lumber, and plywood, visit Phillips Building Supply.
Welcome to the show, Rodney Gilbreath from the Atlanta, Georgia area. Rodney, how are you doing?
Doing just fine. Glad to hear everybody.
Yes,
looking for a good interview here.
Well, we hope that you're up to the task, because you're going to do most of the talking. We're just going to ask you simple questions, like how's the weather, things like that. But anyway, first of all, we do appreciate you, and of course you're a Laurel, Mississippi native, and you came out. You worked for the Braves for a long time, didn't you?
Oh, yeah. I started working with the Braves, I signed in 1970. And, of course, I played 15 years, roughly, counting my minor league time. And just enjoyed every minute of it. Met a lot of people, great friends. There's nothing like baseball to me. I always enjoyed it, and I always will.
Well, you were in one of the most historical moments probably in Major League Baseball back in about in the early 1970s. I want to say 72 or 3. Hank Aaron broke the Babe Ruth's all-time home run record. How was does that night compare with any other night that you were a part of with the Braves, or was there similar?
Well, there's a story leading up to that. I made it to the big leagues, and I was in the big leagues in 1972, and they made a move at the Major League Club, and they sent me back to AAA ball. That was in 1972, 73. And, I made it back in 74 and 75 and on up through the 70s. But it was quite an adjustment, believe me. When you go from the minor league, I played in the minor leagues 72. I played in the major league, 70, 71, 72. And I played in the major leagues 72, 73, 74, 75, 76. Now, all that was not continuous. It was broken up because I got sent back to the minor leagues due to the injuries and everything else. But that's just part of playing baseball, pro baseball. You gotta suck it up and keep playing.
Well, you when you came out of high school, you were considered a multiple sports star at Laurel High School, and
yes.
So I know that you were. I don't know if you signed with Ole Miss or that you were going to sign with them for football, and I don't know if you actually signed, but I know football back then you signed at Christmas, right?
Actually, I did sign with the University of Mississippi, Ole Miss, and then the Braves came in and made me an offer, and I wanted to play baseball, and they wouldn't let me play both sports. I wanted to play baseball and football and baseball, excuse me. Mm-hmm. And they wouldn't let me do that, and Coach Balt wouldn't let me do it, and so I said, hey, they made me an offer. It was time for me to go play pro baseball, and that's what I did. Signed in 1970 in the living room of my home on 1438. Excuse me. Can't even remember my old home. I was over on First Avenue over there. And that's how I got into pro ball. I sure did.
Well, listen.
Paul Snyder was my manager.
How about that? Well, who were some of the guys that you might have played in the minor leagues that you played against or played with that might have later on gone to the majors too?
Well, mainly I can only talk about the guys that I played with. Guys that made it to the big leagues. But first of all, I got to give thanks to Paul Snyder. Paul Snyder was my first manager in pro baseball. They sent me to Twin Falls, Idaho, and Paul was my manager. and I had a assistant coach by the name of Walter Boom Boom Beck. That's an old one for you.
Yeah.
And he was the pitching coach up there with Paul, and Paul was the manager. And I played up there, and after that I went to Greenwood, South Carolina, and played in Class A ball. And that's where I broke out the bat a little bit. I hit, I think it was around 310 in Class A, and had a few home runs, stole some bases. And the next year I went on into Double A ball, which was in the Southern League. Southern League got to be tough. It was in Savannah, and they had an old football field that they turned into a baseball field down there. And I played down there, and it was short porch in left field, and big porch in right field. Believe me, not too many balls went out of right field. But Paul Snyder again was my manager there, and Clint Courtney. That's where I ran in. The first time I ever ran into Clint Courtney, where he was the manager in Savannah, and we won the whole thing that year in South Atlantic League. We actually tore that league up, and it was just a good time, But we played against a lot of players. We really did.
Well, they probably had a little log jam when you were playing in the minors because, I just remember that Braves lineup, I mean, they had some awesome players, during that time. So it wasn't really a lot of room for a lot of people on a major league team, right?
No, sir. As a matter of fact, I didn't really make it up there full time until 1972. That's when I broke in the big leagues there. And I went 72, and then they sent me back to AAA ball in 73. And then I went back to the big leagues in 74. And then I had an injury to my left knee and had to have it surgically repaired. And then I became a utility guy then. I would play third base, shortstop, and second base. And the Braves always looked out after me, and they treated me well, and I tried to play my best. And, fortunately, you can only play so well until the injuries finally catch up to you, and that's what happened to me. And then Paul Snyder was the farm director at that time, and he brought me on into to managing baseball, and pro baseball, that is. And then I went on into the front office. Sure did, 78, 79. And then I became the assistant farm director during that time for a couple of years. But I really enjoyed my baseball. I went to Pittsburgh 2 years after I left the Braves, and it never was the same, but it helped me put food on the table for a while.
Yeah, that always helps, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, listen, I've talked to you over the years, and you've told me some real interesting stories. And if you can remember them, you told me one about the Todd Van Peppel, Chipper Jones debate. Could you explain to our audience a little bit about that, since you were in the front office at that time?
That was right. And Paul Snyder was the scouting director at that time, and Van Poppel was either going to be the number one draft choice, or we were going to take the shortstop, Chipper Jones. That's what that was. And Paul Snyder was the manager, and we rode that horse all the way from Double-A ball. We won the league that year in 1972, and then we went on up to Triple-A ball, and it was just a fun time.
Well, what came into the decision to draft Chipper over Todd Van Peppel, who was probably the supposedly the number one high school pitcher in the country, and everybody, he was talking about going to college and all this, and so
right. Bobby Cox was the general manager then, and we wanted the shortstop. We wanted Chipper Jones, and everybody else did too. There was only a couple of guys that wanted a pitcher. I'm trying to remember the name of the left-handed pitcher that was a big left-hander out of Texas. He was either drafted, he's 70, let me think, 77, 78, 79. And he was some kind of horse. and I wanted the shortstop, Chipper Jones, and of course Bobby went with him too. Bobby liked shortstops, he really did, but he also liked left-handed pitching, and he liked fireballers from the right-hand side. Sure did. He was a fun guy to play for. Paul Snyder was, and
well,
Bobby Cox.
All right, so when y'all went to look at Chipper, did y'all see him as a shortstop? Did he eventually landed up third base? Was he a switch hitter in high school? Because he was one of the all-time greats at switch hitting.
We're one of the few organizations that would let him switch hit, and when he signed, we immediately put him on that left-hand side, switch hitting, and that's how he got to be a switch hitter. His dad would let him switch hit. His dad was a very good baseball man, really a good baseball man, and we brought Chipper up as a switch hitter, and it paid off for him all the way up the ladder. He never stopped. He hit some of the longest home runs I ever seen in my life, and he played like a big leaguer from the first day we signed him to the day he retired. Sure did. He just kept playing. He would play today. He goes out and sees some players for us every now and then still, but he's retired and he lives out in Texas now. Sure does.
Well, in this day and time, I guess it's for scouts. Is it a lot easier to scout than it was back in the day? When you started out in scouting because of the technology.
No, it's actually easier to scout nowadays because they got so many computers around and so many people that think they're all computer geeks and everything else on the ball field that people get turned off on a lot of that stuff, but they keep putting them out there. They keep putting them out there, and but it's Chipper Jones is the best player I ever saw. One of the best players I ever saw. I'd put him in the top 3 of all the players that I've ever seen in the minor leagues.
Well, listen,
and made it to the leagues.
Yeah, that run the Braves had through the '90s and part of the 2000s. Was
right.
that?
I was in the office.
Yeah, was that a fantastic time to be part of the organization?
Absolutely. We were jumping on a plane. It was either me or Paul Snyder or Johnny Grove. We were jumping on a plane every day, just up and down, and for a couple of years. And believe me, we did some kind of traveling during that time. We were all looking for that number 1, number 2 guy. And Chipper Jones, out of all the players that I've ever seen, he's the best I've ever seen. He really is. He could pitch. If he wanted to, he could have won 15, 20 games as a pitcher if he wanted to, but we all wanted him as a shortstop. And then there was some debate about whether to put him in strictly as a third baseman or leave him at shortstop. And there was some pretty heated discussions about that because we knew what we wanted. And we wanted him, and we ended up getting him. We sure did. And he never stopped performing and putting in a good day's work for years for us. I really enjoyed it. I still talk to him every night. Sure do.
Well, listen, after you got to the Braves a few years after you landed there in Atlanta playing for the big league team, you got a new owner, Ted Turner. Tell us how Ted was to work for.
Ted Turner was one of the most flamboyant, and I know you've used that term a lot, everybody has, outspoken, redneck. He had redneck in him.
Well, that's good sometimes.
We all need a little of that.
Yeah, we were all rednecks. but believe me, we had a good network of guys that could put a scouting staff together, and Paul Snyder was the main one that would do that. And he just kept putting us out there and sending us to all these places all over the United States. And that's how we got to be where we are. And we just kept building and building and building and putting players out there. We'd make a trade, put another player out there and make another trade, let him play for a year. And if he didn't perform, we'd go get another one. But that's the way baseball is played now. It's not like it used to be. You got to perform now, or you don't last too long. Sure don't.
Well, listen, the Braves minor league system now compared to the way it was, I assume AAA back when you were coming up was the feeder for the Braves. Is the AAA program basically just kind of a need thing now? Like if you got a backup first baseman down there ready to come to Atlanta if you need him, and that you're really developing the 2A players. Explain that to us.
Well, not really. Your 3A guys are veteran players mostly. Now, that's not all the time. Your 3A guys are the guys that keep moving up your organization. And some of them stall out in AAA ball. They just never get to a higher level. In other words, they get to a point where they might be hitting 295 or 290 at the AAA level and still playing okay, but they just don't have the talent to get to the higher level that they need to play at. I know that's hard for people to understand, but baseball is a big it's just a big outfit, and you got to perform to stay up there. AAA ball, AA ball, high A ball, low A ball, rookie ball. Now we got so many dadgum clubs. I think we have 8 minor league clubs now.
Wow.
And that's not including our clubs down in Dominican down there. And we just keep loading them up and putting them down, loading them up and signing them. And that's the way you develop a ball club, an organization. And we had the people to do it. Bobby Cox was there. Paul Snyder was there. And he was the matriarch of the whole thing. Him and Bobby Cox were the matriarchs of our ball clubs back then. That was in the mid-'70s, early '80s, right in there. And we just had good club after good club. We had players everywhere. We had clubs that would come up to us while we were scouting in the stands and everything and watching games, and they'd say, "Hey, Rod, what's the secret to y'all? How do you keep getting all these good players?" I said, "It ain't me. It's those guys out there scouting, beating their heads against the wall. They get home at night, 1 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the morning, and they have to be back out of the ball game the next day to see a guy at 9 o'clock on the baseball field. That's the kind of guy that you want on your team." And that's what we had. And that's how we developed our minor league structure. And Paul Snyder was the man. He was the man.
Hard work will take you a long way, won't it?
Yes, sir. It sure will. It sure will.
Listen, go ahead.
But I was just going to say, Paul's not doing real well right now. He's in the hospital, him and his wife both, and they're up in North Georgia. So we try to keep in touch with him.
Yeah.
And he's always been like a father to me. Yeah. He sure has. There's no other way for me to put that.
Yeah.
Always been like a dad. Sure
yeah, that close folks, you get involved in a life like that and working hard together, they really get close to people. And that's just part of part of the best part of it. I know you've forged some friendships that'll last a lifetime, and that's important stuff. Listen, this is Marshall. I don't get to say too much, but I did run the clock, and unfortunately, Rob, we're out of time for our interview today. Time flies when you're having fun, and we have really enjoyed you, and we thank you for being with us. I'm going to sign off to go to a commercial. Will you hold on with us for just a minute?
I sure will.
Okay. Right now, Dale and I are going to take a break to hear from one of our sponsors. We'll be back with the final segment of the Brouhaha tonight, right after this commercial break.
Phillips Building Supply in Laurel, your hometown building supply store since 1954. We are locally owned and pride ourselves on helping our customers find exactly what they need. From foundations to roofs to doors and windows, Phillips has it. For tools, hardware, lumber, and plywood, visit Phillips Building Supply.
Welcome back. Welcome back. I think I should have put a B in front of that. Welcome back. Let's try that, everybody, to the Brouhaha. Dale, you're so busy over there, multitasking and doing things and talking at the same time. I bet you can walk and chew bubble gum at the same time.
Probably not now.
Probably.
I'm probably when I was 25 I could, but I mean I'm a little bit, I'm not as old as you, but I'm trying to catch up
You
with you.
get there. You keep living a good life. You'll get there.
There you go.
What's a strange sports rule? Do you have a strange sports rule that comes to mind, that sticks out, that you would like to share?
A strange
sports rule?
I remember one in baseball one time. I don't know if it's still a rule, but I remember that our team got called for it one time, and this was like 40 years ago, and I think the umpire was just trying to tell us that he'd read the rule book or something. I'm not sure what it was, but he said that after a foul ball, if there's a runner on any base, first, second, and third, that runner has to go back and retouch the bag. If he doesn't, he's out. I don't know if that's a rule or not, but if it is, that's a weird one.
Yeah.
And so I just, I'm not sure about it.
I've been seeing a little something on ambidextrous quarterbacks and pitchers on some of the YouTube stuff and stuff I just see, and I didn't realize that ambidextrous pitchers were, as there was many of them obviously as there are out there. I mean, because there is a rule, and I didn't know this, that ambidextrous pitchers have to pick one arm.
For each pitcher or each batter?
For each game. For a game. If you're equally talented pitcher in both arms, you have to announce which arm you're going to be pitching with before the game, and you cannot switch mid-game.
Well, Mississippi State has a pitcher like that, a freshman that they brought
Yes,
in.
I think that's one of the things I read about, and that's why that little rule stuck out to me.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Well, I heard a story yesterday in church.
Oh, boy.
You talking about people, a judge, okay? So there was a judge, and he was trying this man's brother, and the man was sitting in the courtroom, and of course they were fixing to announce the sentence, and the guy got like 6 months. He wouldn't have to serve any jail time. He had to do a thing. Well, the guy that was sitting, kind of in the where the rest of the people sit. I don't call them fans, but the family members. He yawned when the judge did that, and so the judge got him up there and charged him with something in the courtroom and disturbing something. And all he did was yawn, but the judge thought it was intentional, like it was kind of funny, and so the guy got 6 months in jail
For a yawn. I'll be more careful next time I yawn.
Well, no, wouldn't you consider that as weird as?
No, I wouldn't consider that weird, because I would have probably done the same thing that judge did. just so you know, I probably would have.
I'm in charge here.
That's right. I'm the boss. I'm the macaroni here.
There you go.
But not here, you're the macaroni. But no. I do have the time clock, and it's time for us to go. We want our listeners, which are you, to know that you can follow us on Facebook at the Brouhaha, and that we have all of our shows. And Dale put a list of the people we've had on this show, and they're archived on it's 2 pages long. On YouTube at the Brouhaha, so check them out. We'd like to thank you for listening. Thank all of our sponsors. But tonight, it's time to say goodbye, Dale. You can do it. Come on. I know you can.
Hello, Mother. Goodbye, Dale.
And we'll see you next week for more of the Brouhaha. Take us out of here, Jamie.
You've been listening to the Brouhaha with Dale McKee and Marshall Wood. Heard Tuesday evening, 6 p.m. on WABO. For more of the Brouhaha, follow us during the week on Facebook and WABO.